The bridge at Remagen. The first shell didn't just land, it announced the end of time. Corporal Jack Turner hit the mud hard as the explosion ripped apart the riverbank just yards ahead of him. Dirt rained down. The air snapped with gunfire. Somewhere to his left, a man shouted for a medic. And straight ahead, the bridge still stood. Barely. Smoke curled from its steel frame, twisted but unbroken, stretching across the wide, cold waters of the Rhine River like a lifeline or a trap. Move, 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 came the shout. Jack didn't move. Not yet. Because every instinct in his body was screaming the same thing. If you step onto that bridge, you may not come back. Just days before, Jack had been sitting in the back of a transport truck, rolling through the German countryside. The war felt close then, but not like this. Not like standing at the edge of something that could decide everything. Beside him, Private Ellis had been talking, fast, nervous. "You ever think about what comes after this?" Ellis asked. Jack shrugged. "Just getting through today first." Ellis gave a weak grin. "Yeah, one day at a time, right?" Jack nodded, though he wasn't sure he believed it, because some days felt too big to survive. Now this day had arrived. The Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, captured intact against all odds. Command needed men to cross it immediately, to secure the far side before the Germans could destroy it. Jack stared at the structure again. Sections of the bridge were already damaged. Charges had been set, some had gone off, but not enough to bring it down. Not yet. Which meant one thing. They would try again. Turner. Jack snapped out of it. Sergeant Miller was crouched beside him, eyes locked in. "We're going across," Miller said. Jack swallowed. "Sir, that thing could go any second." Miller nodded. "Yeah, it could." He leaned closer. "But if we don't take it now, this war drags on longer. More men die. Maybe even us later instead of now." Jack looked back at the bridge. Then at the river below, cold, fast, unforgiving. Then back at Miller. "Why us?" Jack asked. Miller didn't hesitate. "Because we're here." The order came. And suddenly, there was no more time to think. Men surged forward. Boots pounded against metal as they charged onto the bridge. Jack followed. The first few steps felt unreal. Like walking into a storm you couldn't outrun. Gunfire erupted from the far side. German forces still held positions beyond the bridge. Bullets sparked against steel. The air filled with noise, chaos, and something deeper. Finality. Jack ran harder. Halfway across, another explosion rocked the structure. The bridge shuddered violently, cables groaning under the strain. Men stumbled. One fell. Jack grabbed Ellis by the arm, pulling him forward. "Keep moving," he shouted. Ellis nodded, face pale but determined. "I'm trying." Fear was everywhere. But so was something else. Resolve. Jack's lungs burned as he pushed forward. Each step felt like it might be his last. Every second stretched thin with tension. And then, he remembered something. Not from training. From home. His mother's voice, soft but steady. "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." Psalm 46, verse 1. Jack didn't slow down. But inside, something shifted. "Be that now," he whispered under his breath. The far side loomed closer. Gunfire intensified. A soldier ahead of him went down. Jack flinched, but didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because now he understood something he hadn't before. Courage wasn't about surviving the moment. It was about obeying what mattered even if you didn't. With a final burst, Jack crossed onto the far bank. He dropped behind cover, gasping for breath. Ellis tumbled in beside him. "We made it," Ellis said, almost in disbelief. Jack nodded, still catching his breath. But there was no time to celebrate. "Set up positions." Miller shouted, "Hold this ground." The fight wasn't over. Not even close. German forces counterattacked, desperate to retake or destroy the bridge. Artillery pounded the area. The ground shook. Smoke filled the air. But the Americans held. Because they had to. Because too much depended on it. Hours passed. Then more. Reinforcements began to cross. The bridge, against all odds, remained standing. And with every man who made it across, the impossible became reality. The Allies had a foothold over the Rhine. Germany's final defenses were breaking. That night, Jack sat against a crumbling wall, exhaustion settling deep into his bones. Ellis sat beside him, quiet now. "You ever think about how close that was?" Ellis said finally. Jack let out a slow breath. "Yeah." Ellis looked down at his hands. "I thought I was done back there." Jack nodded. "Me too." A pause. Then Ellis asked, "What kept you going?" Jack didn't answer right away. He looked out toward the bridge, still standing in the distance, scarred but unbroken. Then he said quietly, "I wasn't alone." Years later, Jack would return home. The war would end. Life would move forward. But he would never forget that bridge. Not because of the fear, but because of what he found in the middle of it. Faith. Not loud, not perfect, but steady enough to carry him across. Because sometimes the moment that feels like the end is the one God uses to bring you through. Commentary note: this story reflects the biblical truth that God is our refuge and strength in times of trouble. Psalm 46 verse 1. Jack's experience shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but trusting God while moving forward anyway. It also highlights American values of duty, sacrifice, and stepping forward when history calls. Historical note: this story is based on the real capture of the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen in March 1945 during World War II. American forces unexpectedly found the bridge still standing and quickly moved to secure it, allowing Allied troops to cross the Rhine River into Germany. While the characters in this story are fictional, the event itself was a pivotal moment that accelerated the end of the war in Europe.